communication. And that is kind of my background and where I'm going to be sharing this information from. I have been working in skilled nursing facilities and memory care communities for the last 8 years. And I've just learned a whole lot about people with dementia. Okay. I'm going to stop my video just 1 second to do something so I can share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's try this again. All right, so I now have the option. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what changes happen with individuals with dementia and why it affects swallowing. So in the most basic part, we're going to talk about what is dementia, and we're going to talk about the different types and stages just really quickly. And sorry. Okay, I don't think it's going to work. That's okay. All right. So there are some good associations that we have with meal times. Of course, it's pleasurable. We like to eat. We like nutrition and hydration. We require food and drink to live. It's what we have to do. It's also really important for us culturally. So with holidays and participating in religious beliefs, meal times are really important. Meal times also are an opportunity for independence, making your own choices, having your own preferences. But there are some bad associations, especially when we are concerned about someone with dementia during meals. Things like getting choked, or not eating enough, or losing weight, or being dependent on other people. And so these things are why it's both important, but it can be so hard. So individuals with dementia, if we kind of take a step back, dementia is just an overall term for general loss of memory, language, problem solving, other thinking abilities that is severe enough to interfere with daily life. And for many of the people we love, it not only interferes with them getting dressed and getting showered and doing all the things that we do in a daily life, but it also affects how they eat, how they drink, and how they participate in a meal. Now, I could do an entire presentation about the different types of dementia, but we're just going to do a 500-foot view, which is that dementia, it has that umbrella term that it's conditions that affect our way of thinking. But the most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease, the most common symptom is short-term memory loss. And that's often what we associate with dementia is forgetfulness. But there are so many other types of dementia that have more specific symptoms. So based on the person that you love, their symptoms are going to be different based on the type of dementia they have. We don't always know what type of dementia someone has. We don't always get it diagnosed. But I just want you to know in the most basic sense that some types of dementia will impact swallowing and eating and drinking much more than other types of dementia. Now, in the same realm, there are different stages of dementia. So to make things a little more complicated, there are not only types of dementia, but stages. And so there are a lot of different ways that we can talk about the stages of dementia, but mostly it's just about severity. So there are many different scales that exist. We might hear that dementia is described as early, middle, or late, or mild, moderate, or severe. There's often some scales that have numbers also, so 1 through 7 or 1 through 5. And it's not really important that we know exactly what all of those are for this conversation, but just know that different stages of dementia will also impact swallowing, eating, and drinking in different ways. Obviously, as someone progresses through the disease of dementia, as they become more impaired, then meal times can become more difficult. So there are 3 words that I want to define before we kind of jump into why swallowing is affected and what we can do about it. The first is just appetite. That is something we hear all the time. Now, appetite is just that natural desire to want to eat or to drink. So when we talk about, oh, mom's appetite has been poor, what we might be saying is that she is not demonstrating that she wants to eat. She doesn't seem like she wants to eat. Another word that we need to define is dysphagia. You might also hear it pronounced dysphagia based on where you are in the world. But dysphagia is difficulty swallowing. So anywhere from where food enters in between your lips all the way to where it enters down into your stomach, there can be problems. And so that is called dysphagia. Another term that we hear a lot is aspiration. Aspiration is when food or drink or some other substance goes into our lungs. Now, obviously, all food and drink, all those things need to go into our stomachs. You know, from anatomy class, that's where it goes to digest. But sometimes it goes down the wrong way. And that is what's considered aspiration. It goes into our lungs, and that can actually cause a lot of complications. Not only can it block your airway completely, but it can also cause pneumonia. So sometimes some individuals with dementia might get pneumonia over and over and over again, and it might actually be because they're consistently and constantly getting food and drink in their lungs. Now we have those words, appetite, dysphagia, aspiration. We're going to go into those a little bit more. But what I want you to know is that we need to be the one to make changes. So if someone in our life has dementia and they are not eating or drinking very well, it's not going to be them that we need to expect to change. I know that there are many different scenarios and situations, and some people have more abilities than others, but by and large, when it comes to these kind of issues, we're not going to have the expectation that the person with dementia is going to change, or that we're going to do something to change them. We need to do the changing. So we need to either change how we approach them during meals, how we present food, and I'm going to give you a lot of really good specific tips on how to do that. But it really matters in order to know how to change things. We have to know what the problem is. So if I say that I'm going to show you later, maybe using a red plate might help someone see their food better. But if seeing their food is not the problem, then a red plate's not going to do anything. So the way we change how we do things has to be dependent on the problem. So I really challenge you in this moment to think about what are the common issues that you experience during meal times with the person that you love. Is it that they are just saying that they're not hungry? They just never want to eat? Are they getting up and down from the table all the time? Like they cannot stay still. They're just always on the move. Is it that they are dropping their utensils and they can't get food from the plate to their mouth? Maybe they're eating too fast or too much. Maybe they're gorging themselves. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe they're spitting out little pieces of food. They chew and chew and chew and chew and chew, and they either spit it out or they do what's called pocketing or keep it right in their cheek. Maybe they're playing with their food. They just scoot it around and they push it off the plate and it just goes everywhere. Maybe they are coughing. So when we talk about problem swallowing and aspiration, Three of the red flags we look for if someone might be actually having problems swallowing is coughing during or right after eating, throat clearing, or a wet, gurgly voice. You know, when you hear someone talk and you can't help but clear your throat because you can just hear it sitting on their vocal folds. Those three signs, coughing, throat clearing, and a wet, gurgly voice, are some signs as a speech therapist that we look for to indicate that maybe we need to look into their swallowing a little bit more. So I challenge you, think about what is the problem? What is the actual issue that you are wanting to address today? So if you can kind of think about that, I want you to take it one step further. Why is that problem happening? Now, for individuals with dementia, things change a lot. So they have changes, let's say, in their vision. Think about, how does vision help you eat and drink? Well, first of all, you have to see that food exists. You have to see that it's there. You have to perceive it. You have to understand not only that the food is there, but that it's yours. Because when you're at a restaurant, you see food, right? You see food on the table next to you and you think, oh my gosh, that looks so good. But you know not to reach over and grab it. You'd be in big trouble. So someone with dementia has vision changes. Physically, their peripheral vision goes away and they start looking more like goggles. But also they just have a more difficulty understanding or perceiving contrast, knowing where one thing ends and the next begins. So those vision changes, that can affect food and swallowing and eating. Other sensations like taste, smell. There's a test, the peanut butter test. I don't know if you've heard that. It's kind of been talked about in the world of Alzheimer's, where you can test if someone might have Alzheimer's. One of the earliest tests is if they can smell peanut butter from so far away, because their smell changes. We have changes in communication that happen with dementia, not just talking, but listening and understanding and reading and writing. Think about how much it's involved in eating and drinking, looking at the bottle and reading what it says, or being able to express, hey, I don't like this. I would rather have that. We have changes in motor coordination and strength. So the muscles in their bodies change and their coordination changes. And that definitely affects swallowing. Swallowing is a split-second thing, and it happens so quickly, and there's a lot that can go wrong there. Executive functions. So that is all the complex thinking that happens in the front part of our brain. That's things like attention. So paying attention to a meal long enough to finish it. That's those people that keep getting up or being distracted. Initiation, which is basically getting something started. So you can have difficulty understanding that you need to start eating. We have motivation issues, problem solving. That's all complex thinking. And then memory. We talked about memory earlier with Alzheimer's disease. How does memory impact your eating? I don't know about you, but sometimes I remember, oh my gosh, I forgot to eat lunch today. That doesn't actually happen that often. Maybe more so is, I'm hungry. Wait, I just had 5 Oreos like an hour ago. Maybe I don't need to eat again. So our memory plays a large part in meal times. And then also orientation. I don't know about you, but orientation is knowing like where you are or what time it is. There's not a lot of eating that goes on in my bathroom. There's a lot of eating in my kitchen, in my dining room, and in my living room. So knowing where you are, that impacts your motivation to eat. So all these things happen with dementia. They changes in all of these things. And those are the reasons why meal times become more difficult. So it's important to know that when someone with dementia doesn't eat, we shouldn't assume that it's a choice. So let me tell you that again. If someone with dementia doesn't eat, we can't assume that it's their choice. It could just be a reaction to the deficits that they have. And because it's not a choice, we shouldn't just jump in and feed them or take away their opportunity to eat altogether. They might really want to eat. but they just don't know how. They can't get it together. So we know the problem and we can kind of see maybe why it's happening. But before we go on to just fixing the problem, we need to talk about what works. How are we going to know, oh, we found a tip and a trick that works? We often skip this part when it comes to solving issues with people with dementia. We go from a problem to solving it. But how are we going to know? How are we going to know that we've reached our goal? And so we need to just take a second to think about what is our goal. So when it comes to eating, maybe our goal for our loved one is that they need 2,000 calories every day because we do not want them to lose any more weight. We don't care what they eat. We just want to make sure that they eat at least 2,000 calories. Maybe our goal is that they feed themselves independently. Maybe it's really important to us and we know that it's important to them that they eat on their own. We don't care what they eat, how much they eat, or how long it takes them to eat. We just want them to be able to do it themselves, whether it's with a utensil or their hands. We just want them to be independent. Maybe our goal is that they are eating safely. We know that they have pneumonia often. They're choking often. We don't care what they eat or how fast they eat it or how much they eat. We just want when they eat for it to be safe and for them not to get choked. So as you can see, all of you here, every one of us, we have different goals for people with dementia, and it's all going to be super individualized. Maybe we don't want them to feel hunger or thirst, or we want them just to enjoy their food. We want them to be able to eat whatever they want. That's our goal. So take a second and think about that, what the problem is. Once we know what the problem is, and once we know what the goal is, then we can start making some changes. So I'm going to give you some really practical tips right now as far as what we can do to make it easier, make it more efficient, and make them participate more during meals. The first thing I'm going to touch on is about safety. So maybe someone with dementia doesn't like the experience of eating and drinking because they do get choked a lot. Maybe they're not communicating that to us, and they don't necessarily have like a conscious awareness that they're scared of eating. Maybe they're scared. So one thing that we do sometimes is we modify the texture or the consistency of the food. We call these diets. And I know a lot of times when we think about diets, we think about sugar content and calories or sodium. But when I mean diet, as far as consistency goes, I mean how it's prepared. So in the medical field, we have different diet levels. And you might have heard the terms puree, mechanical soft, and regular. So puree food is what it sounds like, kind of baby food, completely blended. On the other end of the spectrum is regular food, which is regular food. And then in the middle is what we call mechanical soft, which is just softer foods. Think about like pasta and salmon, things that you can easily cut with a fork. So it's possible that changing the consistency of the food could make them more motivated to eat because it's not as scary for them. It's not as taxing for them. We also sometimes thicken liquids. Now in the speech therapy world, we're not doing this as much anymore. We're seeing that research does not support long-term thickening liquids. But the idea is you thicken a drink. If you pour regular water and a thick honey consistency of water, the honey is going to pour slower, right? Because it's thicker. And that's the idea. Just gives the throat a little bit more time to protect the airway. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I am a speech language pathologist, but I firmly believe that it is absolutely necessary to refer to a speech language pathologist if you think that your loved one is having some swallowing issues, and leave it up to them to recommend the most appropriate diet level. All right, there's different levels of feeding assistance. Okay, so I have a video about this on my page, Be Like Care on Instagram. But basically, it's just we very quickly jump to feeding people when they can't eat or they're not eating as much as we want them to. So we just dive in and we get a spoon and we scoop their food and we push it in their mouth. But there are so many different things between them eating independently and them eating completely dependent on us, sitting there and not participating at all. There's a lot of in between. Cody, can I borrow your hand for this presentation? I don't have the video. I'm just going to show the hand over hands technique. Okay, so my husband's here, sorry. So we have 2 other assistance levels that I want to show you. The first being, can you grab that highlighter? Okay, this is our spoon, okay? And so if I wanted to help him eat with this spoon and not just completely do it for him, I could do one of 2 things. The first is hand over hand assistance. So you're gonna hold that like you would a spoon. And so what I'm gonna do as the assistant here is I'm gonna be beside him and I'm gonna put my hand around his, and I'm gonna scoop the food and then bring it up to his mouth. And then maybe next time I scoop the food and then I push it towards his mouth. And then maybe over time, he starts to scoop the food and do it himself. Very good. Okay. The second one is hand under hand assistance. So this is for someone who doesn't have the ability to grasp onto a spoon. So even if they can't fully grasp onto a spoon, I can hold onto the spoon. And instead of just straight feeding him, I could place his hand on my wrist. So that way he feels me scoop and he feels the spoon coming towards his mouth. This is a level that we often skip, but it's really important. Okay, thank you. It's really important because that proprioception, that's knowing where your body is in space. If you're just sitting there and food is just coming into your mouth, even if you're looking, your vision changes doesn't tell you that something's coming to your mouth and you might be defensive. But if you have your hand on top of my hand and you feel your own hands moving towards your mouth, you're going to open your mouth so much more willingly. So when you think that your loved one needs to be fed, consider how you can maybe help them do that. Okay. We also can buy equipment. So there are a lot of things out in the world that you don't even know that exist that can be super helpful. I'm going to tell you about a couple. One is called a nosy cup. And so this is for someone who can't lean their head back when they drink. So anytime you try to give them a drink, maybe they're really have like a forward posture like this, and you're giving them drinks and you just keep hitting their nose. A nosy cup, you can Google this, is basically there's just a part of the cup that's cut out on the top so that when you put the cup up, it doesn't hit their nose. Super simple and can be super, super helpful. Built up utensils. Built up utensils are basically just utensils with a bigger grip. Sometimes they don't, they're the same like weight, or sometimes they're heavier. So for people with tremors, built up and heavier utensils can be helpful. Tray tables. I work in skilled nursing facilities a lot, and there are so many times where I see these little bitty ladies in wheelchairs, and they are pulled up to a table, and their head is barely above the table, and they don't have the shoulder flexion to get up there and eat. Sometimes just modifying the height of the food can be really helpful. Rimmed plates or scoop plates. These are basically plates for people who maybe chase food off the edge of their plate. It's got a rim on one side so that when they scoop, it hits the rim and then it goes onto their utensil. If someone's eating too fast or too much, we can make the utensil or the actual bowl or plate smaller. Just giving them smaller portions can be helpful. And also there's something called Dyson. Dyson is a non-slip surface that you can put under anything really, and it'll keep it from scooting around. So if people are chasing their plate or they're pushing their cup around, that can be really helpful. This is my favorite thing to talk about. Let's talk about motivation. So increasing someone's motivation to eat. I made a video once about a McDonald's bag. So let's say that your loved one loves going to McDonald's. It's such a treat. They will not eat anything, but they will always eat McDonald's, whatever it is. Go to McDonald's and get extra bags and wrappers and containers and cups and put anything in it. Our generation is going to be Starbucks. When we all have dementia, people are going to be putting electrolyte-rich drinks in Starbucks cups, and we're just going to drink them, no problem. The appearance of the containers sometimes of food can be really motivating. Now, for someone who's really frugal, let's say, okay, I don't really like Sonic that much, but if I was given a gift card to Sonic or a coupon for a free corn dog, you better believe I'm going to Sonic and eating a corn dog. I love free things. So there have been times in the past where I've given coupons or gift certificates for food items for individuals who are more motivated by getting free things. Another way we can increase the motivation by the way something is presented is we can make really healthy things look really unhealthy. So making a really beautiful milkshake with whipped cream and a cherry on top, and it just looks like the most, outrageous thing. It could have tons of Greek yogurt and all the protein and all the good stuff in there that they need. So think about how you can motivate your person to eat. What things are they motivated by? Now we can change the environment a lot. Think about lighting. So for individuals with visual impairments, lighting can be really important. I talked earlier about red plates, having contrast between the color of the food and the color of the plate, or the color of the table or the placemat is important. But think about this. If you put ahi tuna and a slice of watermelon and some cherries on a red plate, those are things are all red, so that's not contrast. Red plates don't just fix everything, it's all about contrast. So red usually is a good color. Think about the sound. Some people are actually more hypersensitive to sound when they get older. And so is there an annoying ringing in the background? Is there a TV on in the other room that's really distracting them? Sometimes providing some sound, playing some mariachi music while you're eating Mexican food might get them in the mood. But think about how you can modify what they hear. Now, I do this for myself, but modify the direction that they're sitting. So when I go to a restaurant, let's say with my husband, and I actually want to spend some time with him and talk to him, I might choose to sit in the seat that's facing the wall versus the seat that is facing the rest of the restaurant. Because I'm really nosy and I really like to people watch. You can ask him, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I think they're fighting. Or I'm like, he ordered 3 hamburgers, right? You get really distracted by what you see in the environment. So maybe sitting someone facing a more plain picture of a wall might be better for them. Also think about context. Sometimes we feed people in a living room or in bed, but that doesn't feel normal. You don't feel ready to eat when you're laying in bed unless you've been spoiled like that your whole life. So think about context. Get them in a room that it makes sense for them to be eating in. Might make a difference. And simplify. Sometimes we make place settings really fancy and lots of options, lots of, cups and plates, and just get things off the table. Take centerpieces off the table. Just simplify. Just the food, just them and the food. That might be all they need. Other things we can do is eating family style meals. So eating with them. That not only shows them what to do, but that feels more familiar and what they might have been used to over the course of their life. Consider getting them involved in eating and the preparation of the food or setting the table. That gives them some context and gets them prepared to know, oh, I'm putting plates and forks and knives and cups on the table. It must be time to eat, rather than all of a sudden just being plopped down and being expected to be ready to eat. A lot of times when we talk about diet and dementia, we talk about when do we liberalize diets? So someone maybe who has diabetes, could it be okay to allow them to eat sweets because that's all they want? Now, those kind of conversations are completely individualized, and I can't give you much perspective there other than think about your goal. What's your goal for them? Is your goal for them to not ever to experience hyperglycemia? Then if that's your goal, then no, sweets aren't going to fit and be aligned with that. Not only what your goal is, obviously, but what their goal is for themselves, if they can express that. So you need to consult with medical professionals to talk about, should you liberalize a diet, whether that is this amount of sodium or sugar content, or even those consistency things like we talked about before. So some people that can help you in determining these things are speech language pathologists. And usually you need a referral from a primary care physician in the United States to be ordered to, or to be able to get an order or a referral. So you can just ask your primary care physician, I'd like to see a speech therapist. You can also ask for occupational therapy. They are really experts in self-feeding also. You could refer to registered dietitians, other physicians. There are lots of people that can help you with this area. But the last thing I want to discuss in these last couple of minutes is what if they still won't eat? And unfortunately, I need you to know that with the course of dementia, it is expected for them to have decreased appetite at the end of life. And this is just part of the dying process, unfortunately. And it's honestly, I hear this a lot, but it really is true. It's harder for caregivers sometimes than it is for the person experiencing it when they stop feeling hunger and thirst. We can do all that we can to encourage them and to motivate them, to facilitate. And even if you do everything perfectly, sometimes they still just won't eat. And I'm sorry, it's hard to watch that sometimes, but knowing to expect it might be able to make it a little bit easier for us. At the end of life, it's not recommended. There's a lot of research that's been done about this. It's not recommended that someone in the very advanced stages of dementia get a feeding tube. Feeding tubes are the most often helpful for people who are going to recover, that are going to improve. But when the body shuts down so much that they don't want food or drink, then often that means that the organs are not ready to process food or drink. And so if we still continue to pump them full of that and their organs aren't able to process it, it can be more uncomfortable than anything. Symptoms of dry mouth can be managed through different kind of cleaning and moisturizing things, but it is going to be expected, and we can't avoid appetite changes at the end of life. I hate to have to end the presentation on that sad note, but is there anyone, I think I have the ability to, you all can turn your mics on, I think. But does anyone have any questions? We have like 2 minutes about any of this. I hope this was helpful. If you're not sure where to find me, if you'd like to contact me, my information is, you can email me at info@belightcare.com. And you can follow me on any social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at @belightcare. I have lots and lots of videos about meal times, about communication, about just providing care for individuals with dementia. Lots of videos and lots of posts about those things. So, and you can always direct message me through there too. But it's really important to me that I empower caregivers like you. Happy National Caregiver Day, by the way. And I love being able to talk to you guys like this and help any way I can. So thank you so much for joining me. I think in just a few minutes, they're going to be returning back to the main stage. So thank you for joining me. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you, Adria. You are absolutely fantastic. And my husband has had difficulty swallowing, and I have sought help with speech therapists. So you really validated all of that. I appreciate it. And I will be reaching out to you.
Good. Awesome. Thank you. It sounds like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Then.
I wish you were in Atlanta. I could go to you. Where are you?
I live in Kentucky. Right now, I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys.